I want to start with just a little bit of a concept. We talk about the gluten-free warrior. That's my calling card, if you will, the gluten-free warrior. And I want you to understand, a lot of people don't really know what that means. They just think this guy, he's got a brash attitude and he's kind of a warrior-like, and he's got a warrior and a shield behind him a lot of times in his video. But what does it really mean to be a gluten-free warrior? And so I think it's important to understand that as we come into the holiday season, because at the end of the day, here's what we know. There's an expression of love during holiday time. I think we can all agree upon that. And the expression of love in our modern society is done for most people through food. So, if you think mathematically, love equals food. And so what happens is around the holiday times, if you don't have a warrior mindset, if you don't have the warrior capacity to protect yourself, to protect your family from the potential for dangerous food, creeping in and destroying your health, then you allow that love equals food equation to not really be love. It's like pseudo love, because when people make you things that taste good that actually poison you, that's not love. That's what we see as society. That's what we see in our society. But this is where you've got to really keep it real as you move in. So when I talk about gluten-free warriors, we fight a lot of battles. Some battles are better left for another day, and some battles you have to pick up. You have to pick up your armor and your weapon every single time. And diet is one of those battles, if you're gluten sensitive, that you have to fight. And the reason why is 20 parts per million. That's the size of a breadcrumb, can cause inflammation for up to 2 months, and for many of you can actually put you in the hospital. For many of you maybe it won't put you in the hospital, maybe make you very sick for a number of weeks. And you have to ask yourself, is it worth it? Is the mentality of letting my food guard down, is that mentality worth it over the holiday season? Because I get it. You get around family, people start drinking, tongues start loosening up. Love equals food. Your grandma's got makes your favorite cookie recipe, or whatever that might be. Like whatever you grew up with in your social paradigm. Trust me, I grew up with something very, very similar. I mean, we used to suckle off of ice cream as we're going out of style. That's what I grew up with. I grew up with baked goods and donuts and kolaches and cakes. My family's German, so to a large extent, we did a lot of grain as I was growing up. But I also suffered as I was growing up from, I would say it was childhood obesity. I was extremely overweight until I discovered sports. So, again, that warrior mentality is important to keep during the holiday season. Not that you want to combat your relatives. That's not what I'm saying. We're not trying to create a warrior stoicism where we fight everyone about food. So tonight, I hope what you walk away with is some ideas on how you can embrace love without having to necessarily share poison. I think it's important that we change this paradigm, because we're also not doing our children any favors when we raise them on love equals food, where food is actually poison. We're creating habits and hobbies for them that will jeopardize their future. And if we look around, just look around. If you're from the U.S., 1 in 7 has autoimmune disease. 1 million people die every year from cancer. 1 million people die every year from heart attacks. 250,000 people die every year from stroke. The death rates from diabetes, obesity, comorbidities are sky high, and these are all diet-related illnesses. And when are we going to, as a society, take responsibility for the choices that we've made? When are we going to take responsibility for changing this paradigm and creating a sane paradigm around the holiday season where we can actually share food as love, as opposing to sharing pseudo food with chemicals in it and calling it love? I mean, how long are we going to actually allow ourselves to do that? So I hope that gives you better clarity. When I say gluten-free warrior, I mean you have to be a warrior around your food choices, around what you allow into your inner circle, as far as what we deem to call food. So let's dive into navigating this Thanksgiving holiday. So number one is try to stay strong, right? Staying strong doesn't mean telling everybody no. It just means telling people no as it relates to what you're going to choose to put in your body, and not allowing that peer pressure that, grandma, grandpa, relatives, one bite won't hurt. Like, all that mentality doesn't really get you very far. It gets you in a lot of pain, and it gets you in a lot of trouble. So staying strong in that regard. And one of the things that I highly encourage you to do especially if you're not hosting the dinner, is don't show up at somebody's house. Like, the worst thing that you can do is show up at somebody's house and turn your nose up at all the food that they just spent hours and hours and hours preparing. So this is when you stay strong, it's not show up at their house and be a jerk. It's call ahead. It's be thoughtful in your process of how you're going to stay strong. Plan ahead. Don't just show up and say, I can't eat your food, so I brought my own and I'm going to go sit over here in the corner, because then you feel socially ostracized, isolated, and your family members look at you like you're Greek, like you're foreign. So call ahead of time and let them know, look, I have dietary restrictions. And the way I put it is, I don't tell them, hey, I want you to make everything for me dairy, gluten, and sugar-free. What I say is, I have dietary restrictions, and there's no way that I'm going to hold you responsible for trying to produce and modify everything around me. So I'm coming, I'm going to bring some of my own dishes. I hope that's okay with you, but I just don't, it's impossible for you to cater to all of my special dietary needs. So just understand that when I show up, if you're preparing, for me and for members of my family, like, prepare less. So, like, don't spend the money buying a bunch of food and trying to prepare things for us that we might not eat. I just don't want you to feel like I'm trying to be rude or trying to offset you in your own home. So call ahead and give them a heads up. Don't just show up, right? And bring some of your own things. And we'll talk about some things that you can bring tonight. I'm going to give you some recipes. So staying strong, again, it doesn't mean showing up and being an a-hole. It means calling ahead, planning ahead, right? Talking to people in your family. I like to put words in people's mouths, because sometimes with family members, it's just easier. So kind of the way I view that conversation is, hey, hey, Grandma, I know you're hosting Thanksgiving this year. I'm coming. I can't wait to see you. Hey, but here's something I need you to understand. Like, I've got a lot of different dietary restrictions. I'm battling with some things with my health, and I don't expect that you're going to want to have to navigate or cater to me in the way that I need to be catered to. And so I just don't want you to take offense when I show up with some of my own dishes and eat some things because of my special diet. And I want to just say thank you in advance. This is where you're putting words in their mouth. You say, I want to say thank you in advance for understanding my special needs. And so when I get there, I just appreciate that my diet is not the topic of conversation. And I know you love me, and I know that you care about my health and you want what's best for me. So that's why I'm just thanking you in advance for your understanding. Like, that's the conversation, the honest conversation that you should be having if you know you're going into the proverbial dragon's den of people trying to feed you everything that was ever made or ever created in the kitchen, right? So, like, protect yourself in that way, in a kind and loving way, and have those early conversations so that you don't get there and offend somebody after they've worked hours in the kitchen to take care of you. Now, one of the attitudes that I like to take is what you see right here. Start your New Year's resolution now. This is that we're embarking on a time, and at least in the U.S. and probably in most industrialized countries, where Thanksgiving starts the never-ending plethora of parties, right? So we have this weekend that's coming up. So this is a Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And then right after that, guess what starts? All the Christmas parties. So the Christmas party at work, the Christmas party at your spouse's work, the Christmas parties at your children's school, the Christmas party that your neighbor's going to throw, right? So we come into this season of parties and festive eating and drinking. And so, most people walk out of this 2 months, and they're walking out of this 2 months, and they're going to be right here, an extra 15 pounds or more of weight, because they're going to overdrink, they're going to overeat, they're going to overimbibe, because everybody's going to throw something, and you're going to feel constantly obligated to eat. So, keep it real is in part. So think about starting your New Year's resolution early. I don't like New Year's resolutions, because it basically implies that you have permission to destroy your health for 2 more months until January 1, when everybody decides they're going to turn it around. Like, start it now. Don't give yourself permission to just basically self-deprecate. Like, take care of yourself through this time. Now, if you eat a little bit more calories than what you might typically do, if you imbibe in some spirits or have some drinks, alcoholic beverages, things of that nature, I'm no one to judge you, nor would would I want you to think that, but you've got to keep it reasonable. And a lot of this is where people go off on that deep end, because there's always an excuse. There's going to be the next 6 weeks are going to be straight holiday time, and that's where people get in trouble. So if this is helpful for you at all, think about starting your New Year's resolution now, where you come into the holiday season and instead of knowing you're going to just pound every drink in front of you, pound every meal, cookie, cake, or baked good in front of you. And if you're gluten-free, you shouldn't be doing that anyway, but it still can be challenging if you're making even gluten-free goodies. But think about this as going into it in a reasonable way, and get your mind right. Set yourself up for success. Hey, don't forget to check out the rest of the series right here. Make sure you hit subscribe below. And as always, thanks for tuning in.